Good afternoon. It's Jim Norris, and today from the cold Western Canada, we have Robyn Stewart, who's with Women in Music Canada. How are you doing, Robyn?
I'm great, Jim. Nice to see
Excellent.
you.
Of course, we've talked many times over the years. Um, just going back to I'd like to just start with your education because I noticed that your university education had studies in communication. Just what that was like and how that helped you with your career since then.
hmm Well, I mean, like many young people starting university, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, and I changed it probably three times my first year. So my degree is in recreation management with minors in marketing and psychology, which both of which I think really have helped me all the way through my career, working with a lot of different people and personalities and I actually finished my education program with a practicum in theater, um, hosting or programming the rural tour for Royal Manitoba Theatre Centre. So it's always been based in coordination, logistics, and really overseeing projects.
Excellent. So how did you actually get started in the music industry? What was your first real job?
Yeah, I stage managed for 4 or 5 years right at the beginning of my career, and I was in Regina doing a show, that had just opened at the Globe Theatre, and I got a call from one of my, professors from university actually who was on the board for Prairie Music Week, which is what Western Canadian Music Alliance used to be. And they were going through a transition and needed someone to come in and help out for a bit. So I started into that really just as a happenstance opportunity to help them out in a transition time. But I really quickly started learning a lot of the who's and who's in the music industry. In fact, the first week I was in, the board president at the time said, "We just need you to answer the phones and forward mail to the right people." And within a week, Marianne Gibson out of Alberta came in and walked me through writing the factor report. So it was a bit of trial by fire, and it was back in the days when factor required multiple copies in paper of every receipt. So it was really a quick dive in, and you would think maybe that would leave me running, but I loved it. I loved just learning about what all went into the grant writing process and the reporting process. And it's a really strange place to start in music, but right from the start, I was just really drawn by how the Canadian grant structure can support developing talent and arts. So I just carried on and grew the role from there. So I was actually with WCMA right from before it was WCMA, right from Prairie Music Week, and in different roles in and out through the years. But that's where I started.
Excellent. Well, the grant writing certainly has come in handy in your career since then as well,
Of course, yeah.
for sure. So your years at WCMA and Breakout West, just tell us a little bit about that. Breakout West is an incredible event.
hmm
And continues to be so. You were the executive director there for a number of years, and what
hmm
was involved in that position?
Well, I mean, as I had started in that role as a volunteer coordinator, moved pretty quickly into running the conference, and I left in '09 to go work on the Olympics as a talent buyer, which I absolutely loved. But I also just was it was time to step away for a bit from WCMA because the creative juices just weren't flowing the same way, and so it was nice to step into something else for a while. But when I came back in 2014 as the executive director, it was it was a good time to I was coming back in with a lot of ideas and wanting to put my stamp on something that I already knew inside and out. And it was it was a lot of opportunity to highlight emerging talent. Even in the time I took away working on the Olympics, my favorite part was being able to take the support from the provinces and put that into hiring developing level artists from across this country to put them in front of these huge audiences at the Olympics. And so I realized just the passion I had in developing artists and getting the opportunity to really learn what was going to be impactful on their careers. So coming back into WCMA, it was a chance to really do that through Breakout West Festival, through the development, through the showcase festival, and really see those artists shine and take those opportunities provided and run with it. So. Mhm.
With an event like Breakout West, there's a lot of pieces to juggle, I guess you could call it, with a strict deadline that it's got to be done. But when the event opens, it's got to all be done. So there's how do you do with the pressure of that? How do you deal with that?
I make a lot of lists. I'm a I'm a list maker. I lose sleep if I don't have that list written down. I wake up in the middle of the night when it gets really busy, and I'll just write things down before I can go back to sleep because I wanna make sure that all these pieces are still up in the air and moving where they need to. But we also had an incredible team, and, I think, when I left, Breakout West, WCMA in 2022, I really felt like it was the strongest team we'd had to date, and they really were working together seamlessly, and most of the team is exactly the same still, and they really, worked off each other and found we had an opportunity with an organization that size to really hone in on what everyone's strengths were and then adjust and build the roles to make the most sense for the team. And I think that was what's so interesting about a lot of industry companies in music is that you can really look at like who works best in what and how you work best even. We were able to give each other flexibility to go, okay, I work best these hours, or I need to do it this way, and really figure it out. Because ultimately, a lot of industries say, we're not saving lives. Sure, we're not saving lives, but we really were helping these artists' careers. And the best way to do that is to figure out when you're going to be creative and how we can all meet the members' needs best. So, I think really the team was such a huge support with that. The other thing is the board of directors was made up, half of the leadership of each of the industry associations across Western Canada. So it meant that like that half of the board was hyper focused on their province and territory and really knew the artists in the industry in their communities and could bring that knowledge to it. And the rest of the board was made up of members at large that were really, whose careers were in different areas in live industry or recorded music, etc. They could bring that knowledge and expertise to the table as well. The board was an absolutely incredible support, and I think in those years I've never felt so supported and like we really were a team.
Excellent. So
Mhm.
in the entertainment industry, you're dealing with a lot of creative people, especially the musicians, but speakers and all the other outside people you have to deal with. And they're wonderful people, but sometimes um, not as dependable as you would hope. So how did you deal with that when sometimes you got something arranged or you think it's arranged and then the wheels fall off and then you have to, putting out fires as they call it. Um, and that's very stressful as well. And I think I find anyway, since the pandemic, if anything, people have gotten worse at that. They
Mhm.
ignore emails, they don't pay attention to them. And, it's like the expression, it's like herding cats, as they say. I just wondered how you
Mhm.
deal with that kind of thing, especially for an event that does have a deadline.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree. I think that post-COVID, people have had somewhat our priorities have changed, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that, we just have to recognize it and meet people where they are, and, I mean, I think I was just having a conversation with someone about this last week about how, especially when you have something, a meeting or an event where it's not a big pay structure. So you're doing signing up for something free. We're seeing 50% max of people showing up for things that they sign up for that aren't paid.
Right.
If you get 30% of the signups showing up, you're in a good place. And I think it's about trying to predict that and be ready for it, but in terms of, like, changes and timelines and unpredictability, I think it's about just recognizing what you can control and controlling that as much as you can, and then be so that you are ready for change. I always told my team, like, we have to do now what we can do now, because if we save it for tomorrow, we don't know what's coming tomorrow that we have to deal with then. So we always kind of dealt with time frames that were a little bit ahead. Um, I remember early in the days of working with WCMA, even where we would get to the city that the event was being hosted in. We'd be there a couple days early and we'd be up till 2 in the morning preparing, whether it was, back in the archaic days, whether it was us like creating the delegate passes or something, we would be up late. But it meant that when the event started, we were already depleted. We were already tired when people were arriving. And so when I came back into the role as ED, I was just determined to not have that be the case anymore, because on top of being busy, on top of the extra things that come in, you also have a life. And so you don't know what in your own background, in your own life might come up. So I was really just very stringent on timelines with our team, because and it wasn't to be strict or to be mean. It was because I knew that if we weren't, the things that we didn't expect came when those happened, stress would come in and panic would come in, and that wasn't really fair to any of us. So making sure that everything we could expect, everything we could plan, all the contingencies that might happen, we were planned for.
Right.
um, Especially the main core team members, I used to say, we're going to plan the event so that if all goes well, all we're doing during the event is overseeing, because we know that something won't happen. A volunteer will get sick and you have to fill in there, or a speaker will not make their plane and you have to fill in there. These things happen. But if we have everything that we can control in place, then you can deal with those things. And so on event days, and even in the lead up, our plan was to be ready to just deal with the what ifs, just deal with the surprises. Um, yeah, as much as we could. It was really just planning, and it comes, probably back to list making as well.
Right.
So,
No, it does for sure. So the shift, I guess, in your career to Women in Music Canada, how did that come about? That's hard to believe it's been 3 years already.
yeah. I think the last few years I was at Breakout West and WCMA, it was really the pieces that were really driving me the most were diving into the equity and diversity, diving into the extra pieces we could do to stand above every other event, or to stand to know that at the end of the day we were doing everything we could to make the industry what we want it to be. And those pieces um, were really what was driving me. And so when this opportunity came up, to work with Sam and eventually step into this role, it felt like taking all those pieces I love the most and putting them together. And so it was a real opportunity, and it was like, at the time I was sitting on the She Said So Parenthood Committee, and I was supporting Key Change from the Breakout West side, and all these things I cared a lot about. And suddenly this role came that could be put all these things that you're finding time for and make them your full-time role. And it was really rewarding to do. It was also a bit scary, because as much as I knew there was work to be done, I knew how big a community that needed that work. And it felt like I was stepping into a role where my bosses were all of the women and gender diverse folks who deserved better.
Right.
And so I wanted to make sure that whatever I did when I stepped in, that they were proud of what I was doing. And I still feel that every day.
That's great. And so just for the people that aren't that aware of Women in Music, Canada, just explain, what the organization is and, I
Mhm.
guess, the mission statement and what the organization does.
Yeah. Yeah, so the mission of Women in Music Canada is to make the music industry. I'm paraphrasing a bit here, but to work towards a more equitable and diverse future in the music industry, to support those who are underrepresented, um, and make sure that we can create successful career opportunities and a safe space to work in. that we are leveling playing fields and making this industry what we want it to be in the future. Um, we do this through programming, through advocacy, through research, and through bringing community together. So we bring community together through our mentorship program, through our meetup events that we do at some major events in the across the country, as well as what our province and territory chapters do. And through our national programs, we seek training through Entrepreneur Accelerator program, which is just wrapping up right now in its seventh year. We have our Leadership Accelerator, which we launched 2 years ago, that will run in starting in January, and that's looking at elevating the skills and the support for leaders for women who are moving into senior and executive level roles in the music industry to change that face of music industry where we're seeing more discrepancy, especially when we look at women of color. Um, and try and change that right from the bottom to the top so that the change we're making is going to be sustainable, that it's going to trickle down and last. We also run the summit, like you mentioned at the top. We started that a few years ago. When I moved from Breakout West to here, I say the last thing I thought I would do is start an award show and conference. Lots of those exist in this country. But when I really dove into what our community wanted to see, this felt like a good fit, and it really has been successful the last 3 years. So we're recognizing women and gender diverse folks who are doing incredible things in the music industry in really special areas like Changemaker and excellence in production, etc. And bringing together a conference that is really talking about issues that are specific to women and gender diverse folks. So we know that there's crossover. There's women working in all areas and facets of the music industry, but what are the common threads that really are going to support our community? And that's what we look at. And then, of course, this year we're really, really excited to host the summit as the global summit, along with our partners at Women in Music Global in the U.S. and in other countries across the world, to bring turn everyone's eye to Toronto and bring people here in person as well as virtually.
Excellent. And how's the response been from outside of Canada so far?
Well, when we announced this, there was a massive response. It was probably the biggest, most followed socials us and our partners had seen. Our partners in the US, that is. We plan to launch registration December 1st. And so we're starting the lead up to that, just getting the last bits and pieces in place. And then we hope to have a really great response then. We've grown the size, so we can be ready for it. And so far, our US chapter chairs are really excited to join us, and we just can't wait to get the ball rolling December 1st.
Excellent. That sounds great. And just just the other thing I'd like you to mention a little bit more is the mentorship program, because I think that's
Mm,
different. No, I don't think other people are doing that, but I think it's very positive for both the mentors and the mentees, I guess you could call them. And if you could just explain a little bit how that works or what the opportunity is for both those groups of
of course.
people.
Yeah, so we run this year. We're just starting into our third and last session for this year. We do 3 to 4 sessions of mentorship each year. We use a program called Mentor. Sorry, I'm drawing a blank on the name. Mentor Spaces.
Right.
It's the same one that our US chapter uses, and they had great success. So we took that on as well. It's really beautiful. The sign up is kind of like a dating service in a cheesy way to describe it, but it aligns people who are looking for the same goals with people who have those expertises, and has had some really incredible success. We've seen people be hired into roles directly out of how the partnership went with their mentor, and so this current cohort that we're just pairing people up for now and starting the ball rolling has over 70 pairings of mentor mentee. So it's really quite a successful one. This program is supported by Anthem Entertainment and is just showing some incredible success in connecting. It's the one thing when I started in this role that we were seeing requested the most, and I think it's because in a COVID time, it was really easy to jump on the phone with someone you knew. but it was harder to make new connections
Right.
and go outside of your current circle. And that's what these mentor pairings are really intended to do, to introduce a wider range to your existing circle.
Excellent. And of course, with the summit, in addition to being a learning experience and a celebration, is a great networking opportunity for the people that attend to meet other people, and discuss the challenges and the solutions. And you can't do that online the way you can in person event.
I agree, I agree. I think learning online, in the virtual format is definitely possible, but getting FaceTime with people, there's just something different about that and feeling the energy in the room. So for those who are able to come in person, I agree with you. It's
Excellent,
definitely a positive,
especially
yeah.
now that you're gonna have more international people, like, that's
Mhm.
unique opportunity for people from Canada to connect with women from around the world, basically, that might be in roles that they'd like to be in, so it's
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. Or in markets that they'd like to start working with and get their artists into and get their work crossing into.
Right.
Mhm.
So what are your thoughts on the status of women nowadays? I had a interview with Ebony Rowe a few weeks ago from Honey Jam, and we talked there about how things have changed since she started that organization. And she certainly admitted that it was better, but
Mhm.
it was far from perfect.
I would agree with Ebony for sure. I think that there's even I mean, I think we're definitely seeing strides, we're definitely seeing successes. I think that, unfortunately, more and more I get questions of like, "Why does women in music exist?" Because I see a lot of female singers, and, that to me is just it's getting harder to answer, not because we are seeing that balance, but because there is success being made, but we're also seeing where there's still a lot of work to do. We're seeing, the results of the research on radio that we did last year, where we're looking at how it's incredibly discrepant as to how many women's voices and non-binary gender diverse voices of people of color that we're just not seeing on the radio, especially in certain genres.
Right,
And we're now a year and a half past that research, and it really hasn't changed. In fact, in some blips in the year, it's gone down. So it's really kind of jarring to see, but there really still are these issues, and we still get calls from women who are experiencing discrimination, who are experiencing harassment. It still is happening, and I think that even if we start, if we, I mean, the goal is to keep moving towards a safer, more equitable, and space, but it doesn't mean that these organizations like Honey Jam go away. It means that we work harder to make sure that we're keeping up with what the needs are of our community and to keep this going. And I think that I'd love to be in a time when I can say we don't need to have these conversations separate because we are in a great spot, but we're definitely not there yet.
sure.
And I think that it's just looking at where are the areas that are struggle, and focusing on those.
And of course, that disparity isn't only in the music business, it's in every career imaginable. It doesn't matter what it is. There's always been a history of that.
100%. And it's interesting to me, and some of what I've been looking into the last few years is we often think that the music industry is very progressive and that we're very ahead of the curve. But when we talk about equity, when we talk about gender-based violence, these are things that have been addressed in banking industries, in airline industries, a lot earlier
Right,
than music. So we may think the music and the culture industry are very like ahead of the curve, but we're really not. So we're definitely on board. We're definitely moving in the right direction. But there's still work to do in all industries.
for
It's
sure.
just a really long cultural shift, and
Right.
it's something that's been ingrained for a very long time.
One of the areas that I think there's been a lot of progress when I watch CNN, which I try not to do, but the number of female mayors in the States is
Mm.
overwhelming, and governors and, Congress and senators, and now a lot of women of color are mayors of a lot of cities, chiefs of police departments. It's kind of a big change in the last few years when you look at it,
Mhm.
which is great, because women bring a different, look at things. There was a documentary on last night on the previous prime minister of New Zealand, and what an amazing person she is. Just
Mhm.
incredible what she did during the pandemic, and, they showed her lecturing at Harvard, and she's talking to all these people that are getting their MBAs, and she's an incredible and she when she was elected, she was 37, and
Yeah.
that's just an amazing story for people to look at, male or female. So
Yeah.
in your own you mentioned you kind of alluded slightly to it before about balancing your personal life with the craziness of your business life. So how do you do that? You've got kids and you've got,
I
um,
do.
you know, uh, things you like to do personally. How do you balance that?
Well, I don't know that I balance it. It's interesting. I talk. I think we talk about love work life balance a lot, and I was Margaret McGuffin from Music Publishers Canada said to me recently, "There isn't such a thing as work life balance," and I get it. It's decisions to be made. It's give and take, and it changes through time. And so there's going to be times when it doesn't feel balanced, and it's okay. And there's gonna be times when you feel like more is going to one or than the other, and that's okay. But you need to just be conscious and allow yourself to make the decisions that make the most sense for you and that work for you and for your family. And, if that decision is that this week I need to be away and next week I need to take family time, that's okay. It's not going to always be the same. And I think just allowing allowing yourself some grace to know that you can't do everything today and that you have to take your wins and recognize that even though there's all this stuff to do, that there's this I have a to-do list in front of me about 40 things. And when I wrote it down, it gave me a little bit of heart pressure, but then I realized, you know what, it doesn't need to be today. But this is a place to see how we're doing and to mark off and keep going. And we need to give ourselves time to also be in touch, to talk to people, to see how they're feeling, to see what you're doing is impacting and recognize that we're not islands and we need support and we need to, recognize each other. But I also have an incredible partner who is, you know, holds down the fort when I'm away on a trade mission with artists and I can be focused on that. And not everyone has, the same supports, but finding your village is important too.
Right.
And I think that being in this role, I've really seriously found my village in terms of other directors of organizations, the Amy Trin and Kezzy Myers and Ebony, and these are the people I call on when we just need a couple minutes chat.
For
And
sure. And of course,
and
it's not only your own life balance, it's also as executive director, respecting that balance, for the people that you work with. I think
yeah,
that's
yeah,
important as well. That sometimes I found before with some of my staff that I had that they actually work too hard. And sometimes I'd have to tell them, you back up a bit because you're going over
yeah,
the edge here. And,
yeah,
like you've done enough, go out with your family. And I
yeah.
was talking to one of my former employees recently, and that she's in a new position. And I just said, at the end of the day, just leave that behind, go home and be with your family because
Mhm.
that's why you're doing all this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree, and, I have one other full-time staff and a couple part-time, but, um, y I have given "You know what? You need a holiday." Like, "When are you taking this time? I'm not answering your questions this weekend." It's true. And I'll say along with that, recently my board, reached out to me and said, "We just have a few questions for you." And I thought they would be just like, "When's this happening?" Whatever. But no, all the questions were, "How are you feeling? Do you feel like you can take a weekend off to yourself? And how many hours are you really working? And I think right now, when we're working in alternative spaces, it can be so easy to not shut down. And it was really, really really nice to have those questions asked, and because it forced me to look back at the answers.
For sure.
But it also meant they really cared about, like, what is how, reasonable, what is realistic, what's really happening. Um, Especially in an industry, in any of the cultural industries, we're not all doing this for the money. We're doing it because we love it. And when you
Right.
love something, it doesn't necessarily feel like work, which is great, but then it it can become all consuming if you're not careful. So it's true. You want to keep loving it.
For sure.
Uh, so watching that burnout
Excellent.
potential is really
So
important.
for anybody watching this that wants more information, they can go to it's pretty easy to find Women in Music Canada. Just go to your good friend Google and you'll find the website and social media and all that. So definitely check all of that out and have a look at the summit in March. If you can make it to that event, that's certainly a positive thing to do. And yeah, Robin, I'd like to thank you for your time today. And
Thank you.
yeah, we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Jim.
Take care.